What's up, everybody? Welcome to Bold Voices, a special Monday edition. Thanks for joining. This is such a great way to kick off the week. It's going to be amazing. I'm really excited about today's topic. It's a very important and serious topic. And we have an extremely knowledgeable panel of guests here today to speak on it that I'm so excited about. So you do not want to miss it. Stay tuned. You're in for a treat. What's up, Trangela? Everybody, please share, repost the stream. We want to get as many folks in the room as possible. We want to raise awareness about this topic, shed some light on it. So excited to hear what we're going to learn today. Please like the stream. And if you haven't subscribed on YouTube, please do. That would be amazing. And chat with us. Put your comments, questions, feedback in the chat, and I'll check those out as well. So without any further ado, because we only have Danielle for a little while, these are the amazing guests today. We've got Adam Coleman, Danielle, Justin. Thank you guys so much for being here. Just a little bit of background on what we're talking about. And thank you, Adam, for bringing this all together. You guys are collabing on this. And I was just talking to Justin. I think there's so much that we don't know about what's going on with this. And I feel like it's going to be mind-blowing for everyone. So Adam, I know you did an article for the New York Post. You're a contributor there on trucking has become a hotspot for illegal labor with lethal results, leading to the passion to make a full documentary, which you're crowdfunding for right now, making a documentary called The Illegal Highways. Danielle obviously has extensive work in investigating and exposing trucking industry issues, including your recent documentary, The Death of American Trucking, How America's Highways Became Unsafe, articles as well. And you're third generation in the trucking industry. So definitely have a lot of knowledge and expertise on this issue. And Justin as well, with over 15 plus years of over-the-road trucking experience, founder of Shady Freight. Guys, I don't even know where to begin. And Danielle, I know we only have you for a bit. What was the moment? I mean, obviously you've been in the industry for a long time. I'd love to hear a little bit about each of your personal connections to this and kind of what the moment was that ignited the need to really speak up, investigate, and make a full documentary.
Yeah, I can go first. I try to remember exactly what happened February of last year, and I'm honestly not sure what really started my quest to figure out what was going on. But at some point around February, end of January last year, I realized that the trucking industry was a mess, and I wanted to figure out why. I had seen on X, there's a huge community of truck drivers and people in freight. We refer to it as Freight X. It's a whole community.
Wow.
But within that community, I kept seeing truck drivers yelling and complaining about these issues in the trucking industry. And so I just wanted to figure out what was going on. And that's when I started digging, and I sat on my information for months because I knew what I had found was really, really bad. But at the time, political correctness was still a big thing, especially in the industry. And I knew that if I started posting about it, it would not go very well. And then at some point, I just didn't care. And so I started posting.
How has the response been for you?
Incredible, actually. Absolutely incredible. And I think one of the reasons that it has been so incredible is because I don't just complain about issues or say that they're issues. I explain them in a way that makes sense to anyone. And that was my goal. I never wanted to post something and use trucking jargon with it. I wanted anyone outside of the industry to care about it. Everyone in the industry already cares. So I needed everyone else. We need, as an industry, everyone else to care about it. And so when I write or I'm posting anything, I try to make sure that I'm talking to not the trucking audience, so everyone outside of trucking. And then I always have something to back that up, whether it's a screenshot of data or a screenshot of search carriers of a carrier in their connected network. So the last year has been absolutely amazing.
Well, I'm so happy that you're having such a positive response and a rewarding response, and people are listening. And learning things that I think, Justin and I were saying too, like, if you're not in the industry, you wouldn't know all this is going on. So I really love the fact that you all are bringing awareness to such an important issue. What has sort of, I know it's so hard to like wrap all this up, right, in a short period of time, but what is sort of like maybe one of the most surprising things that you uncovered or came across, or what's like most important for people to know about?
I think it would be two different things. Yeah.
Tough one.
Yeah. I think the most surprising was in the very beginning, I didn't have, so our friend Garrett has built searchcarriers.com, and it is an incredible tool. It took my work from like hours down to minutes. But before I had Search Carriers to do all of this, I had downloaded the FMCSA's company census file, which is 2.1 million rows. Anyone ever, company-wise, that had to register for a US DOT number with the Department of Transportation, their information is in there. And so I downloaded that, and I just started doom scrolling through it night after night. I stayed up until I shouldn't have, so many nights, because I kept finding things in there that did not make sense, whether it was 50 trucking companies at one apartment complex or 12 trucking companies at one house. That, knowing that it's a federal, now that I know what I know, it's like funny to think that I was so surprised by this. But seeing all of that mess in a federal database blew my mind.
Wow.
And the fact that these people can, my biggest issue right now is, and everyone should be, is the chameleon carriers. So a trucking company that gets shut down, whether it's insurance cancels on them, they have a fatal crash and insurance cancels on them, the FMCSA shuts them down because they don't pay their fines. There's 15 other reasons, but they shouldn't be on the roads. And so instead of them getting out of the trucking industry, as they should, they'll just get another DOT number and just keep running. That is where all of the clusters come from. 12 trucking companies. It's really not 12 at one house. It's one or two. And they just keep switching numbers because everyone's trying to shut them down.
Wow. So how did you all get connected around it? Like, how did you find each other and, start collaborating on this together?
I kept running into X.
Yeah. We've known each other on Twitter for a while, and I used to work at this freight media company called Freight Waves, and I would see Danielle at different events. But it wasn't until she started digging into like the fraud aspect into trucking that's when we like really like connected, and we're like, okay, we can really dig into this stuff.
Yeah, and Justin has I'm good. Well, Justin's good at the data part too, but I'm really good driving my computer. And Justin has the trucking experience. So putting those two together, a lot of times, especially with some of the regulations or like nuances of those, that's where Justin fills in the gaps, and it's incredible.
Yeah, she might have like some super niche, term or something, and she's like, "What does this mean?" And
or like hazmat codes.
Yeah, or I can hopefully answer her questions.
It sounds like a very powerful duo for sure. Go ahead, Adam.
And I was a observer of Danielle first, and then of Justin second, and thankfully connected with both of them to work together.
Yeah, so you guys are getting together soon, right, to work on your documentary, Adam. And it sounds like, did you know them before you wrote the article? Was this something that you were already interested in, or?
So a little bit of backstory. Naive me, I had no idea that illegals were in trucking.
Well, I think, we're all naive until, right.
Many such cases.
Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't until the U-turn crash in Florida that it was all over the news that this guy's a illegal immigrant driving a truck. And as an outsider, you always hear, "Oh, trucking is highly regulated." So we just all kind of shrug our shoulders and just kind of move on from there. But to see this highly regulated industry being filled with illegal immigrants was shocking to me, and I wanted to kind of know how and how bad actually is it? Because I understand there's a hot topic. The media can exaggerate how bad it actually is. So I kind of wanted to come across, different aspects of trucking and see what's going on, especially from people who are within trucking and not necessarily people from the media, two different types of people. So I was, like I said, I was following Danielle first, and it was just like day after day after day. I don't know if you saw me like liking your stuff and reposting it, but I was just like, what is this? It would be like UPS store with 50 trucks, trucking companies. And I was just like, what is happening here? Or the videos of the guys untaping the DOT numbers and taping up after a crash. And I'm just like, what is this?
And I'll tell you, you said day after day. I've been doing this for a little over a year now. I have yet to truly run across the same like story. Sometimes the connections or like this company will run into this one where they're connected, but it's to date, not the same story ever.
Yeah. That's how, and that to me told me that this isn't a selective issue because immigration is a hot topic. This is a legit problem. So that's what got me interested in writing the New York Post piece. And Danielle was busy, but I was able to.
I forgot to email you back.
It's okay. We're making it up with the documentary, so don't worry about it. But I got in contact with Justin, and Justin is great because Justin was able to explain to me how the trucking industry works, very patient with me. And I didn't understand the nuances of the brokers and the carriers and so on and so forth. But the longer I was talking to him, the more I was realizing that this is beyond just some illegal immigrants driving trucks.
Yeah.
That this is a massive problem all the way through. So from the shipper all the way down to the driver. And this is one of the very few things cover all different types of topics. For such a critical industry, to have so many issues where it is filled with corruption and organized crime and things of that nature, I couldn't just, all right, well, thanks for the article, guys. I'm going to move on to the next story. Like, it was just like, I can't let this go.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's one thing when it's like a guy like me or many of the other truckers on Twitter or other social media sites that have been screeching about this stuff for years, but when it takes someone from completely outside and we set them down and we're like, okay, where do you want to start? And we just go line by line, barely even scratching the surface after like literally 3 days of back and forth conversations. And thankfully Adam didn't run away
no
screaming into the hills, because this happens a lot. I've talked to many journalists. Anytime there's like a major wreck, trucking is like in the zeitgeist, and corporate journalism being what it is, they want the clicks, they want the views, and so I tell them exactly what's going on, and as soon as immigration comes up, they slam the door shut. Like, nope, not touching it, not going anywhere near that. And so that, I think, is one of the biggest contributors to why none of this stuff has been talked about for the last 15, 20 years. Also, the scale at which immigrants were coming into the industry really didn't start ramping up until 2016, when the FMCSA under the Obama administration relaxed the rules on English language proficiency. Since the 30s, it's been the rule in the U.S. that in order to drive a commercial truck, you have to be able to read, write, and speak English in accordance to like a typical everyday conversation with law enforcement. And before 2016, that rule wasn't really all that enforced, because like you didn't really need to. There might have been pockets down in the South where you have a lot of Mexican immigrant communities where most people speak Spanish as like a first or second language. But by and large, it just really wasn't that big of a problem. Then when the rule was relaxed in 2016, compounded with 2018 and then the 2021 Biden Trucking Action Plan, that really was what opened the floodgates, so to speak, of the entire industry just being overrun with hundreds of thousands of not just new drivers, but new trucking companies. That's something I think too much of the administration is focused on, is like that they're all laser focused in on the drivers.
Yes.
100%. Totally get that. But what they don't understand, or maybe they were not all that public about it, is it's not just the drivers, it's the trucking companies themselves. Because you could have, a magic wand and snap all these guys out of the country tomorrow, but if the companies that hired them are still around, they're just going to get drivers from everywhere else in the country. And we see this on social media all the time. You go on TikTok and you search driving for Russians in Chicago, and it's just nothing but video after video of guys bragging about how they can run illegally 24/7, don't have to worry about their logbooks or anything like that, because now they're running for trucking companies that don't care about the rules. And those are the companies that are hurting the legit carriers in the market right now.
I would say that's a journalism issue too that I run into, and it's incredibly frustrating when one of these wrecks happen. Until the one in Indiana, there was never mention or focus on the trucking company, and it's always so much spotlight gets shined on the driver that's all the entire focus goes on the driver, and that's it. So then a week goes by and everyone forgets about it.
Yeah, it's not getting to like the bigger issue, right?
Yep. When an airline wrecks, the NTSB springs into action. They launch a huge investigation. We know everything about the pilot, everything about the co-pilot, everything about the airline industry, everything about the airline involved. Yeah. They basically strip that plane to pieces and put everything back together to investigate the accident. That does not happen in trucking. Yep. Day after day, it's another fatality. Oops, it happened again. And then everyone just kind of memory holes it. It wasn't until... So there's a huge problem in trucking right now with insurance claims. So a lot of companies will put dash cams in the trucks to record their drivers in case somebody hits them, and they can go to court and say, hey, here's footage of my driver not causing the accident. They're off the hook. Unfortunately, a lot of these cameras are catching the drivers doing wrong things. And so it's I think it's the footage.
Go figure, yeah.
Yeah, it's really the footage of these accidents that's coming out that's like shocking a lot of people. Because like you read about an accident in the news and you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of tragic. But like to see it actually happen in real time from the footage, you're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like self-snitching.
Yeah.
No, that's I mean, really great points. Why is this happening? I'm guessing it's a profit, it's a money thing. Is there any? Yeah, I don't know.
Danielle's got to go soon, so I can let her start it, and then I can try and hopefully finish it in the next hour.
Sure.
I don't even know
right? Simple.
Where to start.
ATA.
Yeah.
I'll start the ATA.
Yeah, I can start there. I was thinking about the Motor Carrier Act of 1980, but I won't go that far. So per online and the articles I could find, since 1987, we have pushed the narrative of a truck driver shortage. And I learned this from Justin. In any industry or any politician that is using the word shortage, they're creating a false gap where we just want cheaper labor. And so we've seen it in nursing. We've seen it in the tech industry. Well, that's happened in trucking, again, since 1987. There really wasn't any fruit from it, 1987 to the 2000s. 2016, Justin just mentioned that we relaxed the English language proficiency rule. And then in 2018, when we opened the borders, which were the floodgates for new trucking companies, new truck drivers, that happened. Then COVID happened. And so when COVID first happened, everything shuts down, everyone is ordering from online versus going to the stores.
Yeah.
And so there was the illusion that there truly was, for the first time ever, a truck driver shortage, even though we've been pushing it since 1987. I don't think that there was a truly a shortage during COVID, but there could have been. I don't know. And so that truck driver shortage, especially during COVID, the headlines for that shortage were basically fear-mongering. If we don't have truck drivers, you're not going to get your medicine. You're not going to get food. You can't get toilet paper. And so it made it okay, seemingly, that we could bring in as many truck drivers as humanly possible. Also, within that time, we relaxed the CDL training schools. So instead of you have to register with FMCSA, but you could self-register. So all four of us could spin up a truck driver school. There we go. Truck driver school today, and say that we're doing the right thing, and we could start certifying truck drivers. They go to the DMV, they get their CDL. I think that's all the dominoes. Pretty much all of them.
ELDs.
Anyone. Yeah. And so open borders. The shortage here is not the same as medical and tech. It is a little bit different because medical and tech companies have to apply for the H-1B visas. And so that's documented. We know which companies are applying for them. We know how many. Trucking, you don't have to have one of those that's documented. We know how many. All you have to have is an employment authorization document or an EAD card. those, I do not think they're counted. There's no cap on them. And I don't even know how many we gave out. If I were to estimate a number, it would be probably conservative. Those EAD cards is all you needed to go to CDL school and get your CDL. And then with the EAD cards, going to get your CDL. So you go through the school. The EAD cards were passed or handed out while an asylum case was pending. So you don't do anything. You just register that you're here and file your claim, and you get an EAD card. With that EAD card, I think that the highest or max limit on it is 2 years. More often than not, it's 6 to 18 months. But the DMVs were issuing CDLs, non-domiciled CDLs, to non-American citizens at the normal term for a CDL, which is 5 to 8 years.
Wow.
And so we have hundreds of thousands of drivers that have EAD cards that expire between 6 months and 24 months or 18 months, but their CDL is valid for the next 5 to 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And you don't know that this was not an issue that you could just clearly see. New York is the only state that prints the visa or EAD card expiration on their CDLs. And so we have that date and the CDL expiration date. And when I got to looking at it, I actually stumbled upon this gold mine of CDLs because some insurance company had vibe coded an app and they left the back door open. And so I just got them all and started going through them. And New York prints both dates. And so I had to research and figure out what's going on here. Why is their visa expired, but their CDL is good? And it's illegally issued. They were not supposed to issue them with those dates so far apart. The CDL expiration is supposed to be the same date as the visa or EAD card expiration.
It's one of those things where not enough people were coming into the country for this stuff to have mattered. And so that rule was never really put in concrete for the DMV employees. All they know is someone comes to me, they have the right paperwork, rubber stamp, out the door.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until we started looking at New York CDLs specifically that had the 2 separate dates on it that we realized oh crap, this guy's visa was expired 2 years ago, but his CDL is still valid for another years. I wonder what other states have this same process. And it turns out just about all of them.
And there were so many in New York. Almost every single one of them were issued with those mismatched dates. I could only assume that the rest of them were very similar, and turns out very much true.
Yeah, so thank you to New York for actually putting both of those dates on there. Otherwise, we would have never known.
Yeah.
Well, also thank you to you guys for doing this, deep, important work that other people aren't, it's just getting overlooked. So it takes so much to, time and effort to really care and make a difference, really, and look into it. And it's amazing that you're doing it. Is there, I guess, because I know, Danielle, we have only a couple minutes left with you. Anything else, anything people can do to help that we, other than obviously supporting you guys, and is there anything else that we can do to make positive changes around this?
I mean, the more voices we get just highlighting the issues, one of the things that I always tell people is the searching feature on searchcarriers.com is free. And so you're going down an interstate or you stop at a truck stop to get gas, you can take a picture of the side of that truck where the company name and their numbers are, upload it to Search Carriers, and it'll give you the carrier's information. And I mean, it's scary. I'm going to tell you, I don't want to be on the highways with some of these people, but the more people that are aware of the issue, I also think that it helps them. I don't want to scare people or make them paranoid about driving on the interstate, but just getting as far away from some of these trucks as possible is the best safety advice I could give anyone.
That is really terrifying. It's crazy too, because I have felt that way for a long time on the highway. I always do get uneasy around trucks, but I always just thought it's because, they're so big and, I feel close to them, and what if, and I feel they're not getting enough sleep. So maybe but there's so much more to it than that.
And they should be getting sleep. We have federal regulations that require them to sleep.
And that's a huge problem. So like when I started in 2007, you were considered like a professional. It was drilled into you in trucking school. Like you are a professional. You're the captain of the ship. Like everything rests on you. And so there was like this point of pride of like, okay, I'm responsible for this massive truck and all this freight on it and everyone else around me on the roads. These days, you don't, if you're going down the highway and you see a truck in front of you or next to you, you don't know if that person's got 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days behind the wheel. You don't know if he's got a perfect safety record or if the company he's driving for hires any bum off the street.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Danielle. Danielle, please tell everyone where they can find you, support you, any shout outs.
Yeah. My website is daniellechaffin.com. All of my socials are linked there, but also all of my socials are maybe Danielle with 3 E's at the end.
All right. Thank you so much, Danielle, for your time. I'm so glad you were here. I'm so glad we connected. Thank you, Adam, for that. And hopefully we'll connect again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye.
So
if I can,
please, Adam, go. I know.
So, because you kind of asked like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
I don't know if this is sort of a how did we get here, but why we're still here, maybe.
Sure.
Organized crime. To me, the meat of it is the organized crime element, because without it, probably wouldn't be as bad as it actually is now. So we have organized crime in the sense of, well, how are these people getting into the country? Well, they're being smuggled. Like, think of it from this sense. Andrew, you ever think about moving to another country just like as a fantasy?
Yes. Right? Not even a fantasy. I mean, kind of, but yeah.
Kind of, yeah. So like, imagine a country you're going to move to. You don't speak the language and you don't know anybody there, per se. Let's just say you don't have any footholding. There's no necessarily any family there. So you have to move to another country. You have to figure out the customs. You have to figure out the bureaucracy. You have to figure out all these different things. These guys are able to come here and get a trucking company, start an LLC in a matter of months, and get behind the wheel of a truck. I don't know any Americans who can get into behind the wheel of a truck.
Right. That's a good point.
And that's because there is an entire network at hand where they know it's a play. In crime, they call it like, what's the play? What's the scheme? Like, there's a scheme at hand. It doesn't matter and there's a lot of ethnic groups that are involved. We could talk about that later. But if you're coming from a particular country, you're being smuggled by people who understand where you're coming from. You're being brought over from the Mexican border. You're being pipelined, probably in a truck, to whatever location. You're maybe being put in a place to stay temporarily. You're being sent to a CDL school of the same ethnic origin. You pass all the tests, right? They streamline you with the CDL as a non-domicile CDL because you don't really have a place anyways. And so then someone sets you up. Hey, I got a truck. You're going to drive it, but you're going to pay me rent on the truck. So instead of necessarily you being in an employer-employee relationship, they're kind of like your employer-landlord. So how can these guys drive for twice as long as the American citizen? It's because they live in their trucks. And it becomes a situation where many of these guys, not saying every single one of them, but for many of these guys, they're essentially indentured servants. So they spend 10 grand, 20 grand to be smuggled in here. That could be their life savings. That could be all the money that their family has. Now they're here and they're basically stuck. And now if you mess with the wrong people, they'll say, actually, you owe us more money.
Yep.
And so now you got to work that off on top of that. So you have to work even more. I even heard someone kind of give the suggestion that the reason why we're seeing so many stolen trailers happening, one, because it's easy, two, because law enforcement doesn't care. But the third reason is that some of these guys may be helping to steal these things to make more money to pay off debts. So you have a lot of stuff that's going on, but all of this is organized crime. And there's a money laundering element as well, which I'm also looking into.
How long have you been sort of looking into this, Adam?
It's been a fast, was it month and a half? I don't know.
I've been living it 15 years, and Adam's a quick study.
It's funny because even hearing Danielle, like, she's like, oh, in the past like year, since like last January, February, to me, it sounds like so much material, so much information that you've been doing this for years,
No.
Yeah.
I'm quick. So if someone, and I'll give credit to Justin, when someone breaks it down in a way that makes sense, then I got it. And then over time, we can get into more complicated things. Mm-hmm. So, I understand some of the basic lingo when it comes to the trucking world. Obviously, I don't have everything, but if there's a question, I can always go to someone like Justin and ask that question, and then I keep it in my head. So I'm always trying to make sure that if I can understand it when making this film, I want to make sure that other people can understand it as well. And I do think that just like with any industry, like I'm with a tech background, if I speak a particular language, you're going to lose people. Yeah. And so I'm trying to make sure that I understand it so I can translate it in a way where Angela, who knows nothing about trucking, can understand what we're talking about.
Yeah. I think that's so smart because if you want people to be invested and care, I think that's a really smart approach. It's like, it makes me think like, break it down to me like I'm 5, in order to actually, and to be invested and to take an interest and really care about this. And, so I think that that's a really smart approach so that people connect to it.
Yeah. What's been really fun about talking with guys like Adam is when people say a term like organized crime and trucking, most people assume it's like how it was back in the day with the Teamsters, where you got a bunch of guys working the dock and oops, a piece fell off the truck and, hey, we're just going to keep it for ourselves now. That's not the case at all these days. It's 21st century crime. These guys are super online. They don't even need to steal anything anymore. They can just clone your credentials. So like, I own a trucking company. I'm going to go pick up a load of sneakers at a warehouse somewhere. Some bad actor overseas in like Moldova, Uzbekistan, you name it. They get a hold of my trucking info. They just have one of their guys show up ahead of me, pretending to be me, and they've got the load. And that happens all the time. All these big, high-profile cases that we've seen right now, you have Tucker Carlson, Guy Fieri, Shaq, all these celebrities are getting their freight stolen, and it's because they're using freight brokers that aren't vetting the carriers correctly, and they're going to warehouses that don't double check to make sure that the truck that's on the dock is actually the correct truck, or the driver that shows them a CDL isn't showing them a fake license. It's all these like tiny little steps that would have been fixed after like 5 seconds of checking. Nobody does the checking, so that's why this stuff is rampant right now.
Wow.
And the way I had someone recently describe it was, back in the day, to have your shipment stolen meant like, I don't know, you stopped at a gas station to go take a leak and someone literally steals your truck, right? Or, something of that nature, right? So that becomes a very obvious theft. Or, someone sticking you up at gunpoint. That becomes very obvious, right? So these are like clear crimes that you can see, and the cops are all over to play rescue, right? Or to arrest a bad guy. But what we're talking about is hacking, right? Impersonating. And it becomes kind of weird. And then it becomes a weird area where the police will say, well, I don't know, jurisdiction, or they'll say, oh, this sounds like a civil matter, things of that nature, because the cops don't understand what's going on. So if Justin was going to explain to them, like, hey, this guy stole my credentials and stole my load, they'll just be like, I don't know, man, I'll lawsuit or something. Like, they don't understand.
Or if you work at the warehouse and they catch the guy, they're like, "Hey, your paperwork doesn't match up." Where it's like, "Oh, sorry, it's a clerical error. I'll come back with the right paperwork. I'll see you tomorrow," and then that guy disappears. So there's very little risk of actually showing up and getting caught, because it's not like you're gonna be arrested there on the spot. They're just gonna say, "Oh, sorry, your paperwork doesn't match. Get lost."
Yep. And if this is in California, they really don't care.
It's I see that in the comments, people are asking like, "Oh, I didn't know this was such a big issue. Is this a major issue in all states or just certain states?" And what people need to understand is it is every single state. When the U-turn crash in Florida happened, Danielle and I were just like punching our computer monitors, because the political attitude at the time was like, "Oh, I can't believe it's California." Everything. all the states were dunking on California. And what we were screeching into the void was like, no, this is every single state that issues non-domicile CDLs. When Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, gets up on stage and starts saying, oh, this is California's fault. It's like, dude, not even 3 months before this accident, there was a guy from Cuba with a Florida CDL that got into a wreck and killed a bunch of people in Terrell, Texas. So no state is innocent in any of this stuff. And I immediately DM'd his communications director on Twitter with a screenshot of the DOT, it's called MCMIS. It's this big database that shows how many CDLs have been issued. And you can see reliably every single year in Florida, a couple thousand CDLs are issued. And then 2020, it's just like this gigantic bar of like 200,000 CDLs issued. I'm like, you guys have the exact same problem. You are not innocent in this at all. And it is every single state. And that, what do you know? It worked because they shut up about it very quickly.
Wow. Phantom, I just want to say thanks for reposting the stream. Yeah, these are some great questions, guys. And I think this is a good one for Justin, probably. I don't see this big of an issue in the oil field. Is this more of a freight trucking issue?
Yeah, so most of these issues you're going to see in what's called the TL sector, truckload sector, OTR freight, that kind of stuff. Oil field is a completely different beast. They are much more boom bust, where oil, new president comes to the office, oil tanks, all those guys lose their job. And then we get into a war overseas, price of oil skyrockets. Next thing you know, those guys are all buying brand new F-350 Raptors, or F-150 Raptors. Yeah, the problem in oil right now is the robo trucks. Those guys are getting automated very quickly. It's a much smaller route. They're not on highways. These are all private roads. So we'll see whether or not there's any success with the autonomous trucking in that sector. But they're hitting it hard right now.
The autonomous trucks thing, someone made a really good point. Like how easy, you see like the Waymos, right? If they run into like one small issue, they just stop. And someone was saying, man, wait till someone is driving, some autonomous truck is hauling $1 million worth of goods. And it just stops. Was that you?
Yeah. I don't remember if that was you. I like to share. There's a screenshot. If you look up, Los Angeles used to have this horrific problem with, and I'm sure they still do, Amazon freight trains at the rail terminal in Los Angeles. Those trail cars just get broken into and pilfered all the time. And so there's like all these photographs of just Amazon packages everywhere on the train tracks. And I'll take a screenshot of like all those article images put together and put it on Twitter, and I'll say, this is what the American highways are going to look like if we start to have autonomous trucks at scale. Amazon has a major problem right now with the contractors that they use to haul their Amazon freight. It's a system they have called Amazon Relay. And most of the problems that we see with community carriers, it's all Amazon, like 99%. If you look at the number of English language proficiency violations that are handed out every single day, it's all Amazon. And so they want to automate that sector as quickly as possible. And the instant that they do, there is going to be absolutely nothing stopping somebody that wants to steal that freight on the truck. You literally got the truck on the road, put a car in front of it, slow it down, stop the truck, open the trailers. That stuff's yours.
Wow. Well, yeah. So I'm sure, Adam, I don't know how far you are into the documentary already, but I know you really want to share people's stories, the tragedies, people who have lost loved ones. Again, I think in order for people, we always talk about storytelling, right? And how I know you and I connect around that a lot, and how storytelling really, people connect with it. And are there any stories that you've come across so far that you'd be able to share, families, or, how this has impacted them?
Yeah, actually, in the article that I wrote, where Justin was in, Deanne Miller, I'm going to go to Colorado where she lives and sit down and interview her. And I may actually be able to interview other people who were involved in the same accident as her husband. Her husband was killed because of a wreck caused by an illegal immigrant driver. He was deported 16 times. Wow. From Mexico. And so everything that could go wrong in that situation, and if one of those things didn't happen, her husband might be alive. But the guy obviously shouldn't have been behind the wheel. So that's one thing. The second part is the type of truck he was driving wasn't the type of truck that should be used for the load that he was carrying. He was carrying heavy pipes. So these are like 500-pound, 1,000-pound pipes, right? And it was a whole bunch of them. And the other part was that it wasn't secured properly. So when he's going through the mountains of Colorado, these guys, once again, the difference between professionals. Professionals understand you have to kind of at certain times drive with your gears to brake rather than leaning on your actual brakes to slow down. And this guy ended up jackknifing the truck. All the metal piping fell off and crushed her husband to death.
Ugh.
So, and this is a woman who was with her husband basically since the age of 17. And they had just retired. Coincidentally, her husband was a truck driver as well. They owned a trucking business. So she understands trucking. And for him to die the way that he died, and after, I think they had just sold their trucking business. They were retiring. They were about to live their best lives in retirement and be happy together. And I think it was a couple years in, and then this happened. So it's heavy. And I'm sure when I go to sit down with her and talk to her about it, it'll be heavy. But even just in my phone interview I did with her, it was heavy. But she's been great. And here's the thing that I want people to understand. This, at no point am I painting this movie as anti-immigrant or being highly politically charged. Depending on who is doing it, they're making it a political issue. For me, it's not, right? For me, it is, there are Americans who are being negatively affected by this. From a political standpoint, the political left always paints illegal immigrants with the most rosy colored glasses. It's Rosita who's cleaning your house and she never harmed a fly, and it's like, well, we don't know. When we have a system set up where all different types of people can come through and they're not being checked, not being vetted. Rosita comes through, but so does the crazy MS-13 guy, right? So it's kind of important that we know who is coming into our country. In the same way, we have all these other checks. And when you have a system that's happening within trucking, you have a two-tier system. So you have guys like Justin who have to do they have to follow all the regulations. They have to do all the right things because they have skin in the game, right? If Justin starts a trucking company and does all the wrong things, they shut down his company. That's it.
As
and
they should.
As they should, and he has a lot to risk. For these guys, they've already broken the most important law, which is coming into the country illegally. Everything else becomes on the table. So it doesn't matter if they steal IDs. It doesn't matter if they break this regulation. It doesn't matter all these other things because they're doing it to survive. And I get it. So to me, this isn't a political issue. To me, this is an American issue. This is about the safety of Americans. And one other thing I'll say is, because it becomes a political issue, if Donald Trump says that illegal immigration is bad, the left has to say that actually it's good, right? And everyone just plays this opposite game. And by doing that, I'm sorry, but on this situation, Donald Trump is right. Illegal immigration is not good. And that's actually what the Democrats used to say for many years, and especially when I was a Democrat. So this isn't a change of position on my part. Everyone has shifted the narrative to take a political position. And now the Democrats...
It's a labor thing.
Right. Well, yeah, there is that part too. But also from a political standpoint, the Democrats are now taking the position that illegal immigration is not necessarily a bad thing, and that illegal immigration in enforcing our immigration laws is somehow oppressive. And they're missing the point. So when they go, and this pisses me off the most, when they go and say, well, they commit less crimes than Americans, which isn't true, but let's say it is true. They commit less crimes and all these other things as if they're superhuman people, and we're just these terrible human beings who just break the law all the time.
We have no humanity. We don't care about anyone.
Right. So they're actually making us more humane. But let's say that's true, right? But they're not supposed to be here. So with every crime that one of them actually does commit, it is an excess crime. So that's the point that they're missing, because they want to make this a political issue to go against Donald Trump. And on this thing, don't agree with everything that Donald Trump says or does, but on this particular thing, he is right on the substance, right? As were the Democrats many years ago on the substance, and actually both parties for many years. But no one was pro illegal immigration, at least publicly speaking. Privately,
video after video of Hillary Clinton when Bill was running for re-election about how they were going to crack down on illegal immigration.
Right.
And Obama too.
Everyone up until Trump came down that escalator.
Yep.
And so I think for me, it's really important that I tell the story of what's going on. I don't even think, to be honest with you, and Justin and I have talked about this, the bad guys in the film aren't the drivers.
Yeah.
You know,
I want to bounce off of that real quick, because Adam was talking the wreck in Colorado. When he was telling me about that wreck, I looked up the carrier, and I actually found there was a really great report done by the FMCSA on this carrier. When a carrier gets to a certain like safety score where it's just like, this guy needs to be shut down like yesterday, they will issue an imminent shutdown hazard notification, meaning they send a letter to your address saying, hey, you're just way too unsafe. You're ignoring all of our responses. Shut it down. And this guy just completely ignored it. Not the driver, but the owner of the company, the guy that was hiring this driver. He had received letter after letter after letter saying, please, for the love of God, shut down. One of your drivers already killed somebody. Another driver you hired, after you fired that guy, was pulled over by DOT, and he had multiple signs in the toolbox of his truck that he could swap out. So it's just time and time again, these guys act as if, and it's true, the rules just do not apply to them. They completely ignore everything because nothing happens to them. There is no enforcement wing within FMCSA. If I get in trouble with the IRS and I don't pay my taxes, I'm going to have somebody with a gun and a badge come knock on my door and say, hey, pay up, or I go to jail. That doesn't happen with DOT. They just send you letter after letter after letter, and it isn't until your insurance company finally drops you and nobody wants to book freight with you that you finally end up shutting down.
I mean, these are really important clarifications. I'm so glad that Adam, and everything you guys just said, I love that what you're doing is you're putting the information out there, right? You're not making these harsh, like blanket statements, to your point, Adam. It's not like an all or nothing black and white, like this is right, this is wrong. It's like, here is the research, we're doing investigations, we're putting, and like you decide, but we're just exposing what's going on. And obviously, Justin, you have tons and tons of experience. So for people to just disregard that or be like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, but you're doing the best you can to give the Americans, the information, the data.
Yeah, Adam mentioned about how journalists try to like paint the immigrants in like rose-tinted glasses. Right. And we have a perfect example of that today. The Washington Post just put out an article going over how up to 200,000 drivers are going to lose their CDL status with this new rule that went into effect today. And the lady who wrote this article, she decided to cover two carriers. We call trucking companies carriers. One is a guy from Russia, and another is a Indian-owned carrier from California. And if this woman had done like 3 seconds of research into these trucking companies, she would have realized immediately. Well, maybe not, because she doesn't know what any of this stuff means. But both of those carriers are commuting carriers.
A problem. Just saying.
But I would love for there to be one article that tries to defend these guys that are here, that doesn't uplift a chameleon carrier. What we mean by that is a company that has ties to other trucking companies, or they have trucks that are running their information illegally to try and circumvent. Maybe their trucking company has been blocked by a shipper or a broker. So every single time they try to like defend the immigrants that are out there, they can't help but like uplift these like criminal dirtbags. I'm like, you guys are so bad at this, so bad every single time.
that's maddening. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
It must be, yeah.
But I get it. It's part of. I'm sorry, not to cut you
No,
off.
you're fine.
I think that's part of why the coverage is so sloppy on this. Is trucking, supply chain, everything, etc. It's background noise. Like you hit a button on your phone and a box magically appears in front of your door. You don't understand the thousands of invisible people that were involved behind the scene to actually make that happen. And part of what we try to do is like lift the veil of like this is everything that was involved, and it's absolutely horrific. It's kind of, I'm not a big fan of PETA, but it's kind of like how they send like undercover agents into slaughterhouses and people realize just how horrific, ag farm is. The same thing in trucking. These are massive criminal networks that rely on human trafficking on a scale that nobody even wants to like comprehend right now. So I take major issue with people trying to say that like these guys are completely innocent. Maybe the individual driver is. I'm not going to begrudge anybody that wants to come to this country. It's a great country. We're the best and want to make a life for themselves. But the people and the networks and the systems that were put in place to make it possible for them at the expense of people already living here, that needs to be exposed and burnt to the ground yesterday.
Yeah. And I mean, I really respect how much work you're doing to get this message out there and to get people invested and caring and realizing why it's a problem, because people get very self-involved and wrapped up in, oh well, it doesn't affect me, but it absolutely can, and people should care. So if there weren't people like you raising awareness about this, and like you said, the media won't touch a lot of it, right? So it's so important what you're doing. This is cool. Edward said, I was in trucking for 34 years, and I have to say that about 8% of the stuff that I see these people talking about is true.
Exactly. You talk to any driver, and they'll tell you what they're seeing on the ground. What I was seeing when I was on the road. So I was on the road from 2007 to 2014, and then 2014 I moved to Philadelphia and just kind of became a local guy. But back when I came into the industry, they've been dealing with turnover is like the biggest problem. Every single driver that they hire quits within a year. I started at Schneider National. If you're on the roads and you see the big orange semis, that's who I got my CDLs through. And I went to Green Bay, Wisconsin. It was a 2-week training course just to get your CDL. And then you spent another 2 weeks on the road with a driver instructor. And then he was the one who passed you on whether or not you were hireable or not. And when I started, it was like 127 people in my class. And 2 weeks later, only like 26 of us had CDLs. So just the attrition rate of like the number of people who apply, go through it, and actually get their CDL is insane. And then out of that 26, within the year, I was the only one still driving a truck. Not driving for Schneider, like just trucking, period.
Yeah.
And they do those courses every single week. And they're one out of hundreds of thousands of trucking companies out there that do the same thing. So every single prisoner to trucker pipeline program that you see, any kind of workforce development, any trucking grants, all that stuff, they're throwing all this money and all these bodies at it because every single time that they do one of these programs, everybody who goes through it quits. It's not a driver shortage. It's just a constant like meat grinder, and they're just adding even more and more people that have CDLs who could go trucking if they wanted to an already oversaturated labor pool. And that's why, pay for truck drivers today is half what it was in 1980 when you adjust for inflation.
Interested to hear what you think about this. Dave said, I'm 100% against non-citizens having CDLs, but in California, the trucking industry is so overly regulated that you can almost understand why companies want to hire cheap labor.
It's a different issue in California because they have much more entrenched ethnic enclaves there. So Bakersfield, California, Fresno, California, massive Sikh populations. And those guys have been there since the 80s. And the way that they work is like if I show up with a CDL and my 20 years in experience in trucking, they're going to tell me to get lost. But if it's a guy who's fresh off the boat that they can throw in a truck, lease him the truck, charge him insurance, charge him fuel, charge him a truck payment, they're going to take that over me any day of the week because they can run that guy how they want, and he's not going to have any say-so in it because if he complains, he's on the boat back to India. And it's the same in Chicago with the Russians or Georgia with the Uzbekistans, or we're seeing it in Indiana and Ohio right now. Anywhere there's like a massive freight network, that's where these guys are all starting to like congregate.
Gotcha. Are there any other specific changes that would prevent some of these tragedies from happening?
I can list off about 50.
Yeah. Put it out there to the experts, because like it's basically like, what can we do? What should we do? I know, Danielle gave us
there's two paths to really take on this. One, you got to tackle the driver issue. Like the companies that are hiring these drivers also need to be taken care of as well. And the one thing I think the administration is doing a great job on is going after the CDL issuance and getting that back under heavily reinforcement. My problem with that is I think that solves like the symptom and not the actual disease, which is the companies themselves. Like these drivers do not exist in a vacuum. Somebody is hiring them. Somebody is bringing them into the country. Somebody is putting them up in a hotel, going through CDL school. Those are the guys that you got to go after. And once you knock those guys down and get them out, these drivers have nowhere to go. Because if I'm a legit American trucking company and I'm playing by the rules, these drivers are radioactive. I don't want them anywhere near my equipment. So until you get rid of all the bad companies and you put barriers to entry into place, a little tangent here. Just about every industry in the United States has like some bare minimum level of a little bit of protectionism. There is something in place that prevents anybody outside the U.S. or who isn't a U.S. citizen from starting anything in that industry. If I want to open up a steel mill or a power plant or, a movie studio or something, there's all kinds of like protections in place that say you have to be living here as a U.S. citizen or permanent resident or get lost. That protection does not exist whatsoever in trucking. You could be like, we have example after example of people that live outside the U.S. that opened up an LLC here in the country, turned it into a trucking company, got a motor carrier authority, and they just start hiring drivers off of Facebook. This stuff happens all the time. So whenever one of these drivers gets into an accident, and if they even have insurance, there's nothing to go after. All these billboard attorneys that you see on the highways that want promise that they're going to sue all these trucking companies for you. There's literally nothing for them to go after, because when that accident occurs, they're just going to fold that company on paper, fire up a new authority that they've already had for a year, and keep the trucks rolling. It's only the large American trucking companies that have assets here in the U.S. that they can go after, that victims have any kind of money to be had.
And that's exactly what I was saying before. When you have a two-tier system, right? So Schneider can't operate in the same way as these chameleon carriers, right? They got too many eyeballs, right? And they have skin in the game. There's a lot for them to lose, right? They can be sued. And, even for like a medium-sized carrier, right? A lawsuit can be the difference between laying people off and going under, right? So they have a lot of sin. For these guys, they're so small on paper that it doesn't matter to them. They're operating as if the name of the business doesn't even matter, right? They could just swap out a name. They literally swap out the names of the companies on their trucks. Yep. Like the name doesn't matter.
I want to put a huge asterisk on that, though. One thing that the large American trucking companies have kind of figured out is something called a power-only board. So if I own a truck, but I don't own a trailer, I can just go haul someone else's freight. So if I'm JB Hunt, if I'm Schneider, if I'm Swift, if I'm Amazon, I don't employ these guys. I just contract with the company that's hiring the drivers to haul my equipment. So when a Amazon trailer hauled by a different truck gets into a wreck and kills somebody, Amazon is off the hook. And they have completely designed this for that, because they understand that most of these carriers are not really all that safe, and we don't want to be responsible for anything that happens to them. In fact, there's a case in front of the Supreme Court right now involving freight brokers. One of the big ones, C.H. Robinson, where they had a carrier, a known unsafe carrier, booked on a load, got into a major accident, and someone lost their leg as a result of this accident. So that victim is suing the driver, the trucking company, the freight broker, and I believe the shipper too. And so everyone's trying to figure out, finally in writing, like, okay, when a situation like this occurs, who exactly is responsible for what?
All right, we have some questions. Thank you, first of all, Imaginary Football League, for reposting the stream. What about driverless trucks?
Great topic.
Heard about 200 driverless trucks. They now have trucks that have no drivers. It's all AI.
Yeah. So when you go back like 10, 15 years ago, there was like 30 autonomous trucking startups in the US. Today, there's about 3. They're I'm not like completely doom and gloom on the autonomous trucks. They are coming, whether we like it or not. I just think the timeline is going to be decades rather than weeks and months, as people have been saying for like the last 10 years. What these autonomous trucking companies either don't understand or know about, but they lie to themselves and their investors, is there is no truck driver shortage. But every single one of these companies, when you look at their press releases and their memos and stuff that they're putting out, they're all saying that, oh, we're here to solve the massive truck driver shortage. And what they're discovering very quickly through bankruptcy, time and time again, is that there is no truck driver shortage in the U.S. There never has been. And there never possibly could be. Mostly because, as Danielle was saying earlier, starting around 1987, one of the big trucking lobbying firms out there is called the American Trucking Association. They started screeching to the sky about a truck driver shortage. And they've been beating that drum for the last 30 years, saying that, like, no matter how much money you give us, no matter how many truck drivers we train, we're always going to be 80,000 truck drivers short. And it's complete nonsense. There is no shortage, and thanks to their lobbying efforts, we've been, if anything, way over capacity for the last 15 years.
Wow, I'm so happy we have you here to talk about that. I hope everyone's taking notes. No, I mean, Justin, your experience, your expertise on this is just, it's so, yeah. I mean, we're learning so much.
Me personally, if the robot trucks are coming and they're inevitable, what I hope happens is that we see a return to what's called the hub and spoke model, where the autonomous trucks take care of like the long haul routes between major city hubs, and then it is a human meat in the seat driver who does the final mile delivery. Because that is something these autonomous trucks are like not really all that good at, is navigating a big semi through cities, bumping a dock, unloading the truck, and then returning it back to the warehouse. Anyone can vibe code a truck AI to drive 500 miles in a straight line without hitting anything. So that's the easy part. And I hope that's what autonomous trucking companies lean more into, is like, let us take care of the OTR stuff. We'll do all the long, boring routes, and we can keep human drivers employed by doing the final mile, like the more expensive stuff that's really hard to train.
Can I give my doom and gloom?
Obviously. There's a storm outside, so it's perfect timing.
Well, we have mentioned before how easy it would be to rob one of these autonomous trucks. So that's one. The second part is, well, why even rob it on the highway when I can hack it? And what people don't understand is anything that is electronic, that has some sort of operating system, things of that nature, it can be hacked, especially if it has an internet connection, which of course those trucks will. So it's the only difference between why someone is not hacking your computer and why someone is the resources and want to. That's all, right? So you mean to tell me that I can hack this truck and have it go wherever I want it to go by changing its GPS coordinates, and I can just take the stuff? I don't even have to, I can have it go into like some wooded area where it's secluded and just rob it and just leave it? Why wouldn't there? We already have hackers who are breaking into accounts to steal loads in a different way. Why wouldn't they find ways to hack these trucks? So the idea that these trucks will be 100% safe and that they'll just make it to wherever they're going to go and nothing bad will ever happen, I think is a farce. And I think the only reason they actually believe that is because we're not hacking cars left and right. And it's because there's no need to. Like, hacking someone's Chevrolet, for what reason? Other than maybe to try to kill them. I don't know. You can steal cars, but usually they find ways to hack the cars to take them, which there are ways to do that. I guess what I'm getting at is stealing someone's $20,000 car is a lot different than stealing $1 million load. And the demand to hack, the demand to come up with coding or to get that coding from said company, and especially by the Chinese, Um, you know, the Chinese like to get in on anything. So, I think that's going to be a massive, massive issue, without a doubt, without a doubt. So that's why I'm always weary about adding the internet to stuff that doesn't need to have the internet stuff
Right.
too.
We
So
see
yeah.
that right now with a lot of these autonomous trucking companies here in the U.S. Many of them have Chinese nationals on their board of advisors and stuff. And so ones I've talked to, a lot of times what they'll do is there's different levels of not atomization, automation, different levels of automation. Level 4, depending on the definition, level 4, level 5 is like full 100% AI driven, no human intervention whatsoever. Currently in the US, most of the stuff that's happening is like level 2 or level 3 autonomy, where I got to drive a level 2 autonomous truck from a company called Plus AI, and they wanted my feedback on it. And I was brutally honest with them, and I told them, like, look, it's a great little toy here, perfect for somebody who is brand new to the industry or somebody with decades of experience that just wants to coast out the last few years of his life, but is absolutely terrible for somebody with like 3 months to 2 years experience, and you have them in that truck for a given length of time, because that person's skill level is going to be completely kneecapped because that truck is doing so much for them. It's basically the truck was like, it was a brand new Peterbilt. I forget the model. It was a brand new Peterbilt, and with level 2 autonomy, it's like you have to start the truck, you have to get the truck moving. Once you're on the highway, you hit a button, and the truck will maintain speed. It will maintain its lane. You can hit the lane change indicator, and it'll change lanes for you once it's clear. But so it's not fully autonomous. But like once you're at highway speeds, you hit a button, and it's basically running on autopilot. And I told them, like, you get this into somebody with like 6 months experience, and you have them in that truck for 2 years. Whatever company they're driving for that's using that truck, if that person wants to leave that company and go somewhere else for higher pay or whatever, they're going to be completely useless, because what if they get in a truck and it's a manual transmission, or it doesn't have any of these fancy features? That's now a less safe driver.
Yeah.
You really only want to have somebody who's brand new, have the truck as like the training wheels, and then get them step by step into more and more manual operation, or somebody who's had decades of proven safe experience and just wants to take it easy for the last couple of years of his career. One thing that a lot of people with this autonomous stuff don't really think about is, automation has been coming for lots of different industries over time. The cotton weavers, agriculture, since the beginning of time. Machines have come in, replaced workers, or helped workers become more productive. That's not going to be the case with autonomous trucks. It's literally just going to put guys out of work. And what people don't realize is that driving a truck is the #1 occupation for non-college educated men in every single state in the country. And so if these guys have their way and these trucks take over at scale, like imagine 5 years from now, 90% of trucking over the road is all done by robots now. What are you going to do with 5 million people that are put out of work now? Nobody has an answer for that.
Can I get my conspiracy?
Well, I was going to say, this is right in Adam's wheelhouse. He loves to talk about AI and what's got, yeah.
I mean, it's not necessarily conspiracy. I mean, it's kind of real is what's happening. It's a matter of intention. But I think that the intention, whether it's trucking or whether other industries, we'll look at Amazon. Amazon grew to this behemoth, right? And they were just expanding. And they were hiring people left and right. They created their own infrastructure, own shipping infrastructure and things like that as they grew. So they needed labor. So the labor kept growing and growing. And then the selection of labor kind of changed, right? And, the guy who's delivering my stuff, who can't find where to deliver it, is texting me in Spanish. Now, I know that they're not being that picky, because they have so much that they're just like, we just need people. We just need people. And they become, and I've seen this within the, during the investigation, looking into a particular foreign group, they all go into the same stuff. They go to Amazon, DoorDash, they have a play. Here's what you do. And and they get into trucking as well. So what you do, my conspiracy is, they say rapid expansion, fill it with bodies, including the illegal ones, right? And then automate the shit out of it. So you can get rid of the labor. So the labor helped to build it up. You automate it, get rid of the labor, make even more money. And so that's what I think is happening, is essentially happening in trucking, is that they've filled up trucking with illegal labor. This disincentivized Americans from being in that workforce, right? Just as you said before, you used to make about twice as much, decades ago, adjusted for inflation.
A lot of inflammation too.
Yeah, lots of inflammation. Adjusted for inflation. So you basically shrink the market for American citizens, fill it up with illegals until you can automate the crap out of it. And I think that seems to be the process that we keep seeing over and over and over, is that they're using illegal labor force until they can automate the crap out of it, or automate it as much as they possibly can. So they don't have to pay the same amount. They don't have to pay for taxes in some cases. They'll let the black market take its course.
That's tricky because the word "they" is doing a lot of heavy lifting here, and you got to for this to be true, you got to make sure that the "they" in this scenario is the same party that is pushing for the lowered standard of drivers in the industry, and also at the same time pushing trying to elevate automation. And there could be a little bit of truth to some of this, because if you look at the map of Washington, D.C., where you look at where the Department of Transportation headquarters is, literally across the street is the address for the American Trucking Association. And so there's a lot of back and forth with the workforce there. It's yet another revolving door in Washington, D.C. You work at a pharmaceutical company, you get a job at the FDA, you get a bunch of new rules and regs passed, you make connections, you get out of the FDA, you go back to working at pharma. Now you have connections that can help whatever company you're working for. Same exact thing in trucking right now. If you look at the former heads of the FMCSA, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, going back the last 20 years since that office has existed, nearly every single one of those guys and gals that worked in that position are now on advisory boards for autonomous semi companies.
Super interesting.
The organization that is responsible for all the rules and regulations put in place, the people who work there, and none of them last more than a year. That's the other crazy thing. The turnover in leadership at FMCSA is about as bad as like the driver pool at any mega carrier.
Wow.
So
wow.
Fortunately, there's a new guy in there, new guy in charge, Derek Bars. Unfortunately, Danielle had to leave earlier, but she's had lots of chats with him, and she seems to think that he's trying to do the right thing. I'm hoping that's the case as well. I'm a huge fan of Duffy. As much as I like to throw bombs at him online, the very first day he took office, I turned on post notifications for him on Twitter, and because I wanted to hammer the issue of the English language proficiency. Like we understood like this was complete horse crap, and this needs to be overturned immediately. And so every single time for like the first 3 months Duffy was in office, I was like the first reply in there with a screenshot of this memo from FMCSA saying, hey, we're no longer going to put drivers out of service if they can't speak English. And I'm like, look, this wasn't a law. This wasn't an executive order. This wasn't like some big thing. This was an email. You, Sean Duffy, can take your phone out of your pocket right now, fire off a new email, and completely negate this. And it took 3 months of me screeching online for other people to notice, and other people chimping out and doing it as well. And then other organizations like American Truckers United actually having face-to-face conversations with Sean Duffy. And lo and behold, boof, we got a brand new executive order, and that's put back in place. Unfortunately, the guy, I'm blanking on the guy's name, but the person whose name was on that memo that put it out there, he still works at the FMCSA. He's now in charge of hazmat. So the person who put out the memo saying we're no longer going to enforce whether or not drivers can speak English or not, he's in charge of like bulk tanker hazmat transportation within the FMCSA now. Like, no, I'm sorry, your political career needs to be evaporated on the spot. I'll take the administration a lot more seriously on whether or not they're actually serious about taking this stuff to heart when they start firing and letting go of the bureaucrats that got us into this mess in the first place. Because otherwise, the day that Trump leaves office, whoever comes next, everything goes right back to where it was.
Right.
Very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many concerning aspects and angles to all of this that you guys have shed light on today. I'm so thankful for that. I feel like it's been really informative, so good for people to know and be aware of. Adam, I want to talk about your documentary. So, the illegal highways, what is the next steps for you, the process? What does that look like? And also, please tell people, where they can help support, crowdfund, in order to make this very important project.
Yeah, they can go to my GiveSendGo, so givesendgo.com/the illegal highways with an S at the end. Yeah, I'm in the pre-production stage. So just lining up everything, who I'm going to talk to. The first people I'm actually filming are actually I think the first person I'm filming is Danielle. But Justin's going to be at the truck show in Kentucky. So I'm interviewing, I believe, 4 experts at the truck show. So there'll be my expert portion of the film. The widow I was telling you about, I'm going to be interviewing her in Colorado. I may be going to Ohio to maybe talk to a broker, and I might have a whistleblower.
Ooh, we love a whistleblower.
So I'm trying to get in communication with this person and talk to them.
Nice.
So there may be like 1 or 2 anonymous people who will be a part of it. Do the whole silhouette thing. Or my name is Dave. Just do that whole thing.
Nice.
But it's better than not having them on, because I do, especially the whistleblower. It sounds like they have insight as to like really how things are operating and confirming what we suspect. And I guess I'll say this: I am working on getting an interview with Sean Duffy. So I might find out this week sometime. And what's her name? Tricia McLaughlin. She was the secretary with was it Homeland Security just until recently. But I'm going to interview her beginning of April. So yeah, I mean that's just so far.
Yeah.
All the different interviews I have lined up. I'm constructing in my head the story, how this is all going to take place. It's all going to really form with each conversation that I have, and kind of putting it together. But so people understand, this is not to be a hyper political documentary. This is focused on how this is affecting Americans. It's focused on how it's hurting, killing, how it is hurting their businesses. So there's one particular person I should be able to interview. He said the saddest day in his life was having to in his work life was having to shut down his trucking company. And it's because of the environment that's at hand. He has a very compelling story about becoming like a detective to figure out where his stolen shipment went, and how the FBI basically said, tough luck. I don't know what he needs to do. So there's a lot of that, guys who had stuff stolen. But ultimately, I'm trying to show why Americans should care. And I think Americans should care that how they get their most basic goods is being orchestrated by crime syndicates, and how the biggest corporations, whether they know or don't know, they're benefiting from criminality. So I think it's important to say like, hey, Amazon, let's say that the guys at the very top have no idea. It's completely whimsical about what is actually happening on the ground. It's possible. Well, you should now be aware. And now that you're aware, the public is aware, are you going to do something about it? Just in the same way, we used to go after people like you're making goods in sweatshops in China.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had to start, well, we don't want that. So we're actually shutting that down, and we're going to a different part of China where it's not a sweatshop. We should actually have something similar, some sort of responsibility from the shipper side, where the shipper holds the feet to the fire to the brokers. and the brokers do the same thing to the carriers and properly vet them and weed out these people. And then so that's the socially responsible thing. But then there's the enforcement. And I think the enforcement is the key. I don't think it's enough for them to cancel the CDLs. I think they should, but I don't think it's enough to just cancel 200,000 CDLs because these guys are criminals and they don't care. They're already here illegally. Who cares if they get pulled over and they don't have a proper CDL? But, the cops are going to arrest them, maybe, and then release them, and they'll be back in the truck tomorrow. Like, it doesn't matter. So
I would much rather see the FMCSA issue shutdown notifications for operating authorities than the hassle of dealing with shutting down CDLs, because I think you're going to have a lot more success in doing that. And it would literally just take a weekend of them going through the entire company census file, do an address match. Any address that has more than 2, 3, 4, however many trucking companies you want, send them a letter saying, hey, you got X number of days to respond to us, proving that you are real. And if we don't hear anything back, you are shut down on the spot. And then anyone that you do shut down, you notify their insurance carrier and you say, you have X number of days to drop this policy, or we're going to the Department of Insurance and we're revoking your insurer's license. Problem solved.
Right.
Problem solved. And they just don't do it. I don't know why.
Hannah says hi. Hannah's on our show a lot. So, wanted to make sure you saw Hannah's hello. We love you, Hannah. What's up? Trangela says, I'm here, not to worry. So just to recap for Edward, what will be the name of this documentary? When will it be coming out? I don't want to miss it. You don't.
So we're in pre-production, but we start filming in a couple of weeks. Because of that, I don't have a particular release date, but I will be talking about it a lot. So if you want to follow me on X, you can, at wrong_speak. You can follow me on Substack, adambcoleman.substack.com. The name of the film is called The Illegal Highways. So if you want to donate, you can go to GiveSendGo/The Illegal Highways. And you can definitely contribute to it. All the money goes towards helping produce this film. And it's been great so far. Different people who are in trucking, family members of truckers who are concerned about what's happening within trucking. Just my outsider take, the trucking industry seems to be one where it hasn't had a whole lot of crossover outside of the trucking industry. So there's trucking media, right? And they talk amongst themselves. But like when something major, like what's happening right now, there's not a whole lot of crossover into the public sphere, right? And there's not even crossover into the political sphere. This is something that is relatively new that is happening. It took political pressure and realization in the topic of illegal immigration to even have the English language enforcement happen. That was a political measure. And now that they're doing that, now Justin can go and search which companies have the most violations or which companies have violations for English language. Because that's our key right there as to who is for sure hiring illegal immigrants, who's part of this syndicate. So it took political pressure. It took the public knowing. It took political figures realizing what's going on. As we said before, the trucking industry is kind of isolated. It's like in its own silo, and everyone presumes that everything is on the up and up. But the guys like Justin are in the industry and see there's lots of problems, but they actually need help from outside the industry too. So there needs to be more money given to the enforcement arm. Someone was telling me that, I can't remember the percentage, it was like 70 or 80% of the DOT money is basically for the FAA.
Yeah.
And the FAA, highly regulated, very safe to fly, right? They are on top of everything. They inspect everything. You can't go past go. Like you can't do nothing wrong when it comes to the FAA. The FMCSA, not even close. Not even close. So the enforcement is completely different because of funds allocated. And so if there seems to be no need, why should we throw money into the FMCSA? Everything is fine. Because no one knows that things are not okay.
It wasn't until we started seeing these like high profile wrecks and all the horrific footage that people really started putting eyeballs on it. And one of the criticisms that the people put out towards the current administration is like, oh, they don't have the data and all this stuff. It's 5,000 people a year are killed, and these immigrants drivers make these high profile wrecks are just a small tiny fraction. What they don't understand is there's no data because none of this stuff has ever been recorded. If a DOT officer pulls a truck driver over, they don't record whether or not that driver has legal status in the country or not. So there's like your giant missing data point right there. Then the total number of like non-fatal accidents that are occurring every day, even if they're reported or not, none of this stuff is recorded. So I take great issue with there was a woman named Wendy Liu who just did she was on a panel with the subcommittee last week or the week before, and that was like her only talking point is like, oh, the administration doesn't have the data. There's no data. It's like there's no data because nobody ever thought to like take the time to record it. There are things you can look into. So if you go into the DOT file and you look up how many trucking companies have English language proficiency violations, and you compare those carriers to the rest of the carriers out there that do get stopped for inspections, you realize, oh, these guys get 2 times the number of violations of the carriers that don't have English language proficiency violations, and they have 3 times the level of egregious violations compared to carriers that don't. So there's your data right there. They just either pretend like it doesn't exist, or they only focus on, well, we just don't know the immigrant status of the person behind the wheel. It's like, you're not going to have that data because no one records it. But if you look at whether they can speak English or not, there you go.
Yeah.
Interesting. So we have a bunch of comments from Ava. So I'm just going to run through and see if there's anything, Justin or Adam, that you want to add related to this. They can't run drivers as owner operators in California. It's against California law. Driver has to be an employee. They can't be leased on and charged anymore for insurance, fuel, trucks, etc. This is exactly why you see companies start in California, then move address for business filings.
That's why we're seeing so many of these carriers pop up in Indiana. So there were 2 wrecks in Indiana in January. One where 5 Amish guys were killed, and another one in Greenwood, Indiana, of all places. Most of these carriers originated in California. They're guys from the Sikh Indian community. They understood that California is a overcrowded market, and they can no longer run their guys as independent contractors. So they hitched wagons and went out east, and they're setting up shop in Ohio, Indiana. They can't really do Chicago because Chicago is basically taken over by all of the Eastern Europeans. But anywhere where there's like a major freight hub, that's where these guys are setting up shop. And there's a guy named Siddharth Mahant from Indiana, who's kind of wrapped up in all of this. And he owns a handful of trucking companies, 3 CDL schools in Indiana. And he was actually running for a political office in Indiana to try and get a law passed that dropped the English language requirement for CDLs that were being transferred out of state into Indiana. So Indiana is one of the only few states that was doing this before Trump was even in office. If I lived in Florida and I wanted to move to Indiana, I had to retake the knowledge tests in English in order to transfer my license over. And what do you know? Sid was having a problem that he couldn't get his drivers from California to move to Indiana because none of them could pass the English test. So he was trying to run for office to pass this. And first time he ran, he got disqualified, blew $2 million on his political fund doing it, and he's running again. And Indiana is doing everything. I have been talking with Senator Banks' team. They're doing everything they can to shut guys like that down, and more power to them.
I saw you laugh, Adam.
I mean, he's a one-issue politician.
yeah. And what's crazy is he's running as a Republican. These guys are. What's insane is how shameless and just blatant with this stuff that they are. You go on Facebook and you type in DOT for sale or MC for sale, and you'll have all these guys that are trying to either buy or sell an operating authority. So I own a hair salon and I catch someone's hair on fire. I get sued. I get shut down. My hair salon is out of business. I do that in trucking. I just go out and buy a new authority off of somebody, or a used authority off of somebody, and keep running. And so we'll send screenshots of this stuff to Derek Bars at FMCSA, and we're like, look what they're doing now. And the guy in charge of all of it is just blown away. And that's something they're trying to do now. They just put out a public statement like the day before yesterday saying, like, we're stopping this. No more buying, selling, and trading your DOT authorities. We're absolutely stopping that. So I think what they're trying to do is get a registered database of all known transferred DOT authorities that they can shut down, and that I'm 100% behind that. That needs to stop.
Yeah. Well, good. I mean, amazing work, guys. I love it. Okay, last thing is kind of back to autonomous trucks like Aurora's on a closed loop system. They claim not hacking into the scenario of slowing the truck down, stopping the truck, and stealing the freight. The system will immediately alert the authorities in the area as soon as it detects a threat, which is why the companies are going for short range routes, not long. And then also JJ says if AI and automation ends up replacing these trucking jobs, as is projected, the whole illegal immigrant issue will be irrelevant. Any thoughts on any of that?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's irrelevant. These guys are still in the country, and they got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
But as far as Aurora specifically, they're bragging about how they're doing 1,100, 1,200 mile routes now. And if you're in certain states, you get into an accident or you blow a flat tire, that help is going to be an hour, 2 hours away. So plenty of time to figure out where DOT officers are on the highway, see where that truck is coming. And it takes zero time whatsoever to stop the truck, break the seal on the trailer, and get whatever you can out of that truck. Or stop the truck, disconnect the trailer, shove it out of the way, get your truck up underneath that trailer, and then keep going.
And the other thing is, I would imagine if you're going to go through the effort to slow down a truck, to steal from it, you're going to be strategic about it. So you're going to do it in a spot where it's between state police stations, right? And for like if you're in like Indiana, Ohio, and stuff, places like that, they don't have that many state troopers on the road. So is it hard to get away with it? I've seen what it looks like in a city. I used to work in an alarm company and dispatch stuff, and I would see how long it takes for response time. And this is in a community where they have the local police and everything. And most response times are closer to 10 to 15 minutes. And if you're unlucky, it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on how busy it is. So
if there's no fatalities involved,
yeah,
they're taking their sweet time.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine the 911 dispatcher getting like, I am being stopped to take my load. Like, I don't know how does it call authorities and what it sounds like?
No, it's going to be some guy in a call center in the Philippines with a real thick accent trying to describe to the dispatcher over the phone what's happening. They're not going to know the geography. Yeah, they're not going to know the geography of the area.
Which mile marker?
Waymo was just busted. Where one of their, a lot of their cars, when they get stuck, it pings a call center overseas, and it's up to some person sitting behind a cubicle to figure out, okay, how do we move the car out of the way and fix this? Same thing's coming to trucking too, where that's something they don't really talk about right now. Any semi truck that gets put on the road with a human behind the wheel, you are required by law to do a pre-trip and a post-trip inspection. I got my handy rule book right here. Federal regulations. This is every rule in the book that a meat in the seat driver has to follow. And the autonomous trucks, they want to follow maybe this many rules. And so all these other rules that human drivers have to follow, they want tossed out the window for them, and that ain't happening. So somebody needs to pre-trip the trucks, somebody needs to post-trip the trucks, and sign off on both ends, because God forbid one of these trucks gets into a wreck or blows a tire or something. There needs to be evidence that this truck was being properly maintained. And so I think the idea that these autonomous trucking companies are trying to go for is, we won't have a bunch of autonomous trucks just doing whatever they want. We're going to have one human operator that's responsible for up to 100 trucks at once, and they can kind of babysit the trucks while they're on the highways. It's like, okay, who is that person? What are their qualifications? And are they even going to be in the country? And those are very, very uncomfortable questions that they don't want to answer at the moment.
Yeah, no, for sure. I made a face because there's things are hitting my window. There's like a storm happening. I don't know what's going on, but it's crazy out there. So if y'all heard that, today, sorry for the distraction. I was like,
anyone flying today, there's like delays
through my window. Oh my goodness. So Adam, I guess kind of last question, what has been, or do you think will be, the biggest challenge or challenges for you related to, filming this documentary on, let's say, a tight budget while trying to cover, such a big nationwide issue?
I mean, the biggest challenge is just money,
Yeah.
because it costs money to travel.
Give them the money, people.
Yeah, give me the money.
To make this.
Hit
It's important.
that GoFundMe.
Yeah.
But I guess the other thing is, especially sitting across from Deanne Miller, I'm giving myself away, but ever since my son was born, I can't be around. Like if someone's crying on TV or in front of me, I cry. Like I just can't help it. And so watching someone talk about losing their loved one and her potentially crying in front of me, I'm like, keep it together.
Yeah.
Try to keep it together. But I probably won't be able to. So, just listening to those type of stories are difficult, but I think necessary.
Absolutely necessary, beautiful. I mean, it's near and dear to my heart because Justin probably doesn't know this, but I'm a therapist. So my background is in mental health, and it is so important. And I just think, sure, trying to hold it together, but also like I think being authentic and genuine, you're going to have a very touching interaction. And I feel like that's, the best thing, being authentic and being in that moment, and whatever comes up, comes up, because it is really tough stuff, loss, grief. And I just think that she's going to be so appreciative of you telling her story and being able to, to do this and have other people hear and raise awareness to the issues. And just want to echo all of this, that it is super, super worthy work that you guys are doing. And in case, Adam, you need another idea, next focus. We're going to go down another rabbit hole for you. Adam's just all about writing the articles and then making the documentaries. And so it's all happening. But illegal immigrant hiring in the meatpacking industry in the Midwest, interesting. Golf course and equestrian industry in Florida, and high-end hospitality industry wherever multimillionaires and billionaires reside. Very interesting. Yeah. So in case that gives you any ideas for your next project, even though you're fully in this one. But I'm so appreciative of you guys being here. It was so educational, so informative, so important. And thank you for making people care. Thank you for spending the time and putting the effort in when, most people just kind of let it go because maybe it doesn't impact them personally. You really are making a huge positive difference in this area. And I'm so happy that we were able to talk about this today.
Thank you. No, I appreciate you allowing us to talk and Justin joining us and being part of the film.
Absolutely. Guys, please tell the audience where they can find you, follow you, support you. Any last shout outs or promos you want to do, go for it. Adam, we'll go to you first.
Yeah. Follow me on X at wrong_speak. My Substack, where I kind of keep everybody updated and things that I'm doing as well. AdamBColeman.substack.com. I do have a YouTube channel. It's kind of sparse at times, but search Wrong Speak Media. And the Gibson Go. So go to www.gibsongo.com/theillegalhighways with an S at the end.
Awesome. And Justin, how about you?
I'm most active on Twitter at SuperTrucker. I promise the name is ironic. I made it as a joke, and I'm stuck with it. I do want to promote my friend Gord McGill has a new book out. Get my camera here to focus on. It's called End of the Road: Inside the War on Truckers by Gord McGill. It's fantastic. It's basically part autobiography, part just deep dive into exactly why the industry is in the state that it's in. Gord is a 20-plus year industry veteran from Canada originally, but he's done trucking on the ice roads, the Australian outback, New Zealand, parts of Europe. So he's got one of the best resumes as far as someone behind the wheel I've ever met. And I was one of those people that believed in the truck driver shortage narrative until I met Gord years ago, and he politely but firmly removed my head from my shoulders and corrected me on the issue. So yeah, it's great book, End of the Road by Gord McGill. Look for it on Amazon.
Fantastic. No, that's so interesting. It made me think. I had a family member once say to me too that I should consider being a truck driver because there's a shortage.
It's how it happens.
I've definitely heard it myself. So
yeah, And people just buy it at face value because they're like, oh yeah, we just. And it's what's really annoying. Not to go on too much of a tangent here. All the AI models are fed on like media sites. So if you ask ChatGPT, Grok, whatever, hey, is there a truck driver shortage? It just spits out, yes, there is, because all it knows is what the headlines say, and it's until you get into the nitty gritty of like, okay, who's saying there's a shortage? Oh, it's the ATA. Well, when you read the ATA study, you realize it's full of crap, and they've just been lying about this the whole time. So at least, I don't know about ChatGPT, but at least with Grok, you can argue back and forth with it enough to correct it, and then eventually it bleeds out into the rest of the public.
That's cool. No, I think that's a really important reminder in general. Like a lot of what we've been saying, people don't take that like next step to do a deeper dive into, well, why that, take it a few more steps. They just sort of believe the, whatever.
Take it at face value.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a really good reminder for all of us to question things a bit more, challenge things a bit more, do our own research, all of that. But guys, I so appreciate you. Thank you so much for all your work. Thank you for being here and speaking on this. Yeah, it's been a great time. So thank you guys so much. Everybody follow them, support them, donate, all the stuff. Have a great time working on the documentary together. And we'll talk soon. Thanks so much, guys.
It was fun. Thanks for having us.
See you later. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This has been awesome. I know we don't normally do a stream on Mondays, and it was a great, really, way to kick off the week together. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate all of you in the chat, all of your comments, feedback, questions. Please follow these guys, Danielle as well. Give them support. They're obviously doing really important work and need all the attention that they can get to spread the positive message and raise awareness. So yeah, that's it, guys. I really appreciate you. I hope you're having a beautiful day. Happy week. We will be taking tomorrow off. So that's why we did a fun stream today. Instead, Tuesdays, we normally are live at 7 p.m. Eastern, but we'll be taking tomorrow off for St. Patrick's Day. I hope you guys have a fun day, have a fun time. And we'll be back on Thursday. Bold Voices will be back on Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we'll have another fun conversation for you. Great guests. It'll be very bold. So looking forward to that. So enjoy the next couple days. Have a great week. I'll see you on Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Thanks again so much to the awesome guests today, the awesome panel on this super important topic. And please subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Bold Voices. What's up, guys? Thank you so much. Have a great day. Stay bold.